Well, welcome to our Top Producer Mindset podcast. I'm Serafin, Director of Operations of Equity Smart Home Loans. And today I'm joined with my two amazing guests right here who are loan officers at Equity Smart. And we're going to talk a little bit about the mentorship program that we have just released and speak a little bit about mentorship in the mortgage industry. But before I get carried away, I'm going to go ahead and have my guests introduce themselves.
Thank you, Serafin. Hi, Hugo.
What's up,
Thanks
man?
for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Justin Bitensky, Senior Loan Officer at Equity Smart Home Loans and mentor in the Mentorship Program. I've been with Equity Smart for over 4 years now, which is pretty crazy. When I started here, there was no COVID, and now it's hopefully almost gone.
Now there was
But
COVID.
knock on
Yeah.
wood.
very relevant to
Yeah,
the mortgage biz and everything we went through. But
100%.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little background on me.
Yeah. And my name's Hugo, brand new to the industry. I started originating in January, late January, 24th. I got that date like ingrained in my head. And yeah, so brand new to the industry completely. I didn't do direct lending before or anything, just started here at Equity Smart specifically because I liked the way that they looked out for their loan officers and how they trained them because I needed that because I
Yeah.
don't know anything.
Mhm.
But yeah, as the first mentee, this was like a dream, right? Because this is exactly what I needed getting into the industry for the first time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I think I just look at how you guys have such like interesting and parallel kind of paths, which make the whole development of the mentorship program and then
hmm
you guys being mentor mentee very like unique in that way.
yeah.
Um, Justin, why don't you start by just kind of sharing a little bit about how you got you cut your teeth in the mortgage industry?
So I actually had a very similar background to Hugo, which was no background
Mm.
in the
Mhm.
mortgage biz at all. My background most recently was in insurance, and prior to that was digital media advertising.
Mhm.
So I was introduced to the idea of being a mortgage loan officer by a friend's dad, and he
Yeah.
was in Florida, and I got my license, and I'd only been in insurance about a year at that point in time, and I was pretty dead set on just hanging my license under him, and he was going to get set up in California,
Yeah.
and we were going
Yeah.
to do the thing, and I knew people in
Yep.
Florida, and he was going to send out mailers, and rates were low, and
Yeah.
I was going to pick up the phone, and we were going to do a bunch of
Yeah.
refinances, and
Did it
I
ever
was
got that
That's
way?
I was
good.
gonna make I was gonna make 5,000 a deal, and we were gonna do a deal a week, and it was
Yeah.
gonna be 250 grand a year, and
Yep.
it sounded pretty good,
Yeah.
and it didn't end up working out. It was very difficult for him to get into California, and
Mhm.
then I met Pablo, and I was, like, locked and loaded with my real estate license.
Right.
I actually wanted to be a realtor 6, 7 years ago, and the
Oh, really?
idea
Yeah.
of going out as a realtor and getting my first deal was daunting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How am I gonna get a listing? I don't know what I'm doing, or how am I gonna get a buyer? I don't know what I'm
Yeah. Do I
doing.
just knock on doors? Like
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
well, that was pretty much,
Yeah.
was to
Right.
go knock on
Yeah.
doors, and when I met Pablo and started talking with him, and I didn't know what a refinance market was. I didn't really know what a refinance was.
Mhm.
I thought it just you got your mortgage and you paid it off over 30 years, and it was a very boring, stale industry. I had no clue. They don't really teach you this stuff in school.
Right.
So what came, Pablo said, "Yeah, you can keep your old job and you can keep working here, and when you eventually you won't want your old job." And he was right.
Mhm.
And yeah, very quickly I realized that the path to getting your first deal in the mortgage biz is a lot less intimidating than the real estate biz. It was like,
Mhm.
I know people, they own homes, their rates are higher, rates are lower now.
Right.
So let's
Mm.
get your mortgage statement. And that Pablo kind of made it very simple for me in that market. It was
Yeah.
get the mortgage statement, check the rate, check the address,
Mhm.
then collect the app and compare payments, and we're
Oh, that's
often
beautiful.
we're often rolling. Yeah.
That
So
sounds nice.
that was how
Different
I
market than what we're in right
I'm
now.
dreaming of
it was a different
refinance.
market,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I haven't seen one yet.
that was how I started with some refis, and then I realized that I ran into a couple people that needed to buy homes, and
Mhm.
then that was intimidating to get involved with a couple realtors and an escrow company
Yeah.
and an appraiser. There weren't appraisal waivers on as many of those, and
Yeah.
so that got a little experience there, and
Mhm.
met a realtor on that deal. She liked me, and we're in an escrow on another deal 4 plus years later,
There you
and
go.
done a couple dozen in between, and
Awesome.
that
Yeah.
was, and COVID hit, and my first 3 deals were in the pipe, and I had a short list of loan officers that I knew from Equity Smart, from other
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
and I was just if I needed an answer to a question, I'd call someone. If they didn't pick up, I was didn't have time to leave a message. I just called the next loan officer and the next loan officer, the next loan officer.
Mhm.
And that's how I figured it out. I didn't
Yeah.
have the mentorship program.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that because, I mean, we, you know, we knew that we needed to have, some sort of person on our staff that could be available, right? But especially when a lot of our people like that are in the company, right, are all like doing something or doing their own loans, especially during 2020, 2021, it was really wild because everyone was busy with business, right?
Yeah.
We were so busy on the operations side that we couldn't even keep up with all the different ways we had to grow. So we recognized, like, oh, yeah, we still have this gap between people who are coming into our business and the people who have established themselves as like not needing that sort of help. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that because you had to kind of do it the old fashioned way,
Yeah.
right? You kind
Mhm.
of had to just like, okay, I got a deal. I know that there's these 10 people that I can reach out to. Which one's going to be available today to
Mhm.
give me some time to like figure out the problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would call
Yeah.
5, 6 people. I'd be posting in forums online.
Yeah.
I'd be calling underwriters and AMCs and the credit report company. I was like calling Calyx Point customer service. If anyone
Oh
even
God, I
remembers
remember.
who that
Yeah.
company
I
was.
don't even know who
Like
they
I
are.
had a list of every customer service company.
Yeah.
Like I was deep in just making sure I could get answers. That was the biggest problem. Is like I
Yeah.
had deals. Like I knew
Hmm.
people and I had deals. I thought that was going to be the problem. And it still always is the problem
Right.
because you still always need more deals. But it was like getting answers and
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
them as quickly
Yeah.
as I could. And yeah, like you said, at that time, yeah, you're in this great refinance market where there's opportunities, but everyone's busy.
Yeah.
So the people who you need who have the good answers and the experience,
They're
the
busy.
Steve Kims,
Yeah.
they're busy. Like I call
Exactly.
Steve and it's like, I knew I had 45 seconds until
Yeah.
he got another call and told me he
Yeah.
had to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's wild because I mean, sidebar, he had 1 month where he closed a loan per day the entire month.
Yeah,
It
his
was like
31
it was like
day
31.
record or
Yeah.
31 loan record. He
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about it during my orientation. I remember that.
Yeah, it was wild. We couldn't
Yeah.
believe it either. He
Yeah.
couldn't believe it either until I actually pulled up the numbers in front of him. Like, you closed a loan.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he was kind of, but the market was moving fast back then, right? And so, to your point, right, if you weren't moving fast enough, then you might have also had an opportunity that passes you up
Yeah.
without even had a real shot to really make something of it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for saying a little bit more about how you were able to start in our industry. Hugo, why don't you just speak a little bit about what your experience was kind of starting? Because you started about 4 years after
Yeah.
Justin did. So we
Mhm.
had a little bit of time to develop some
Yeah.
things. One of those, of course, being this program. But before you were in the program, what did that feel like for you?
For me, I think I had a unique experience because I came from a background of uh, I used to be a professional video game player and a content creator. So like I had this network of influencers slash just everyday people that owned homes, etc.,
Yeah.
already built in,
Yeah.
which is what drove me to this industry. Is because same thing as you, I ran into someone who just gave me promises of money. They're like, you can make this much. This is how great it is. Blah blah blah. And at that point, it was before rates went. Well, I don't know. Actually, was it even that good? It was like 2023 at the beginning. I guess it wasn't good.
No,
It
no.
was
But
not good.
not good. Yeah. So I guess he lied to me then because he told me how great it was and how easy it is. And I'm like, cool. Well, I don't care about how easy it is, but I do need money and I need a new job because I was kind of over what I was doing. And so immediately I started researching into it and I found a lot of things that I liked about the gaming and influencer
Mhm.
job that I had
Mhm.
were also found in the mortgage industry. So
Okay.
like complete independence. I don't have a boss that tells me how to do the job. It's kind of I'm allowed to just approach it the way that I think works,
Mhm.
Right.
and merit based success. Right? If I'm good at my job, nobody can tell me crap. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that because
Yeah.
I just wanna learn. I'm down to be wrong, but I want to learn, and I don't want someone to tell me that I have to do things one way and it might not even be the right way.
Right.
I got into this and I had a head start on the network part, so I had leads coming in and I had people contacting me,
Yeah.
but I was at a point where people were asking me questions and I knew nothing outside of what I learned during the exams.
Mhm.
So I was y'all would see me here, I was just in guidelines, I was reading everything. Google was my friend. I was like Investopedia. I was like reading everything, like for the simple
Bank
terms,
rates
like
and all that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
what is LTV? I'm like
Arb.
looking this up. Yeah, and like and so
See,
that's what I was
yeah,
doing because I had to keep up with these conversations I was having, and I had to
right,
convince people that I knew what I was doing, so they'd trust me to keep it going.
right.
And it was a balancing act, and I was kind of telling myself, thank God I'm not actually in escrow right now because then I would just crumble because I'm spending all my time talking to these people and learning. I have no time to do the loan yet.
Right.
By the time I started talking to Justin and this program started up, is when I was in the midst of getting my first deal. The
Mhm.
first deal I got was in March, 2 months later, where we got into escrow.
Yeah.
That's when I started talking to Justin. And it was perfect timing because then you know the underwriters are asking me stuff, the appraisers are talking to me, insurance. Like I don't know anything about this,
Right.
like the actual steps.
Mhm.
And so it was great to have someone there who could talk me through it. And I think like if Justin and I didn't meet and this wasn't a thing, I would have found a way, but it would have been terrible. Like I'd
Yeah.
have to bug Pablo or
Uh-huh.
Steve, and I know they're busy, and I
Yeah.
would just would have been, hey, excuse me, like knocking on the door, and then they
Yeah.
would have just been like, Steve would give me
You
10
again.
seconds and it would be a good answer, but it'd be a high level answer because
Right,
Steve's
right,
just busy. He doesn't
Yeah.
have the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so when I was approached about the mentorship program, I'm like, yes, like this is perfect because now I'm going to have someone dedicated to my questions. It's
Mhm.
going to be like a mutual relationship in that way.
Yeah.
But also, my initial concern was, am I going to get along with the mentor?
Mhm.
And then we did the interview, and then I found out immediately that I would.
Yeah.
And then everything's been great since.
Okay, good.
So
I'm
yeah,
glad. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I think one of the things that I can't take all the credit for the program. I mean, I wanna just, like, give a lot of credit actually to Justin really quick before I go into this part of the story, because Justin actually came into our office at the end of December, I think was last year, right? Somewhere around there, beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think it might have been right before the new year. Yeah,
Right.
because we were like, okay, this is a good idea, but let's wait till 2024.
Right,
Yeah.
and so we were
Oh, thank God you did.
yeah, no, so I had wanted to do a mentorship program for a while, but I knew that the currency of the program would be the quality of mentor.
Mhm.
And I'm always getting feedback and I'm analyzing that feedback from loan officers. And so many would just say how they would come from other shops and there was either no training or support. There was it, but it just wasn't like a right fit, or it was just kind of like whack, I'll say,
Yeah. Yeah.
or there was a mentorship program and um, that consisted of getting like a list of like 10 to 15 loan officers who were all too busy to,
Yeah.
actually spend time with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm very, very aware of the fact that whenever we roll something out, we very much are signing our name onto whether or not we think it's something worth anyone's time.
Mhm.
And I have been in good mentorship programs, and so I know the quality of a good mentor and how it can really change the trajectory of like whether or not you decide to like make this thing that you're doing like a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And I know what happens when you don't have that support and you just crumble, right?
Yeah.
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 And those are the like little traumatic moments that stay with you forever
Yeah.
because you never forget when stuff like hits the fan and you're like, oh man,
Yeah, and you mess
what
it
do
all
I
up.
do?
Yeah, and
You
the stakes are
know?
high, right? This isn't just like a little
Yeah,
screw up that no, this is somebody's house. This is somebody's dream. This is somebody like that's been trying for this for years, and you're
right.
the one who comes in and screws it up.
Yeah.
And in my case, they would have been friends that I would have screwed over. And it's just like
Exactly.
it was, yeah, it was important, and I wanted to make sure that I had proper guidance.
It's a lot of
Exactly.
pressure.
Yeah, a lot
You
of
got a
pressure.
seller who wants to cash out after their great investment from many years ago. You got realtors that are just waiting for their commission checks in the mail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You got an escrow
lots of
company
pockets on the
asking you
line.
what's the status of the loan.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah. Let me.
You're like, this is the
I'm checking.
email
Hold
like,
on.
I'm just
Yeah.
not going to answer right now because my
Yeah.
response is not going to be good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Meanwhile,
yeah.
I'm like on Wikipedia to get answers. Like that doesn't cut it, you
Oh, yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah. No, 100% doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
And I mean, so to the point of like creating the program, we had the idea, but we didn't know yet if we had like someone who would really like just say like, yeah, I'm down for this because we need some people who are going to be like the starters, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
finding good starters
Yeah.
is hard, right? Because
Mhm.
it takes a certain level of like living with ambiguity that you have to be a little comfortable with while the rest of us start to like form
Yeah, like
the
create, like piece it all together, how it'll work. Yeah.
right, because like there's a whole bunch of stuff that go into it. But Justin was like, it just happened to work in the best way possible, where he's like, "Hey, I have this idea, and I'm listening to this idea, and I'm like, oh yes, yeah. I had this idea like like a while ago, but
Right.
that you're saying it shows me that right now is the right time to actually
Yeah.
develop it,
Mhm.
because the hardest part was to find a good mentor to be able to like really make this happen. And Justin has such a great story.
Yeah.
Honestly, the way that he started, and the just how passionate you are for like what we do, and just taking care of your clients is something that just speaks for itself, honestly, with the amount of reviews you get and everything. So I knew that, okay, we have a great mentor. Now what we have to do is also find a good mentee
Mhm.
to like pair up together to make sure that we have a good proof of the concept, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not something that we're just thinking is good, and then in actuality it turns out to like fall flat, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm glad it just worked out. It worked out where you guys were able to, I think, really what is it? Like kind of see, I want to say, I don't want to get metaphysical here, but like see yourselves in each other, right? Like that part of,
Mhm.
and that's like what a
Yeah.
good mentorship is, right? It's of the idea of being able to guide. And there's an exchange that's happening that I think that a lot of programs, especially in our industry, like mentor programs, just totally forget, which is like a true mentorship is actually an exchange between not just mentor and giving guidance, but the mentee also helping the mentor sharpen their own skills by having to now take what they learn and transmit it in a way to actually guide someone to another
Mhm.
level of understanding.
Yeah.
And
It's
you,
different. It's not just like teacher student. It's like a relationship,
yeah,
right? I mean, I'm not teaching you nearly as much as you're teaching me, right? But like, it feels like we are working together. You're not just throwing stuff at me and then
Yeah.
seeing if I get better, right? It's like
Ah,
we're having real conversations, real thoughts,
yeah.
it's a real process. And I feel like, yeah, infinitely better about this versus like a class or like,
Hmm.
here's your game plan. And then it's a piece of paper and that's all I get. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
when,
not.
Call me in a
yeah,
month.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember the first time
Yeah.
Steve Kim called me and asked me a question.
Oh,
That's
yeah, I
like,
remember you
yeah,
told me. Yeah,
see,
yeah.
he was whenever he called me, he was calling me back from when he didn't pick up when I called him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, had already called 10 other loan officers at that point and got my question answered. So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks Steve for calling. But yeah, he called me and asked me a question for the first time, and I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
Steve Kim just asked me a question."
Let's change. That's the moment.
But yeah, I mean, you're talking about that HELOC with the single bureau credit pull, and
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"What's that?"
Yeah.
I didn't know about that one. I got to
Yeah, that
add that
was
to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
that's
So
one that
yeah,
I'll
you're
remember, yeah.
gonna be out there and learn from your own loans and dig through your own loans, and I'm gonna learn through your loans,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
through
yeah.
my loans, and
Mhm.
we're all there.
Mhm.
It's it's just phenomenal. I mean, like one thing you said that stood out is you would have figured it out, and you absolutely would have figured it out.
Mhm.
But I can just tell because you're similar to me, and
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
And you ask all the right questions. You have the work ethic that was extremely obvious from the beginning. So like you're gonna make it.
Mhm.
It's just how rough would that have been in the
Yeah.
sense of how long would it have taken?
And what
How
kind of
much
emotional
business
Yeah.
turmoil would I have gone through?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how much
Yeah, the
business would you
anguish. Yeah.
Or lost, yeah.
how much business would you have lost, and
Right.
how many relationships would you have not uh built,
Right.
right? Like if
Yep.
on that first deal,
Mhm.
would that realtor have just not picked up your call after the deal? Would
100%.
you have just like because every time he called you, you're like,
Yeah.
like
No,
what?
I mean, seriously,
And
like,
like you
I'll
and
get
I
back to you.
prepped a lot of those calls, and we're like, it was very, very like hands on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the escrow company, the title company, you didn't have to deal with them
Yeah.
messaging one of the realtors, be like, this guy clearly has never worked on a loan before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my goal was always, okay, make sure no one ever knows that this is my first loan.
Right.
Yeah,
Make sure no one ever knows
no
this is my
one
second
knows
loan.
still.
And they never
They'll
will.
find out maybe later down the line
Yeah.
when I'm already their best person.
When they see this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
They're
might
like, wait a
find out
second,
here.
that was done.
But
I did a podcast in May. You closed my
But
loan
the
in
thing
April.
is, like, at this point, they're happy enough with me already that they'll let it slide. You
Yeah.
know, like it'll be cool now. But yeah, no, that was happening in real time where I had my first deal that was closing. He calls me up and he's like, "Hey, so I'm about to put in an offer, and I was just wondering on your contingencies. So what are you thinking on the loan? What are you thinking on the appraisal?" I'm like, and he asked me so straightforwardly, like I should definitely know this, and I
Yeah.
heard it in the tone of his voice, and in my head, I'm like, I definitely do not. So I didn't tell him that. I was like, hey, so I'm in the middle of something right now, but let me just get back to you like just give me like 30 minutes. I'll get right back to you. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, absolutely. Sure. He's like, cool about it. Hang up, immediately go to Justin. Thankfully, this was the day that I was with you in Westlake because we do this thing where, because his office is in Westlake Village
Yeah.
and I live out here in Pasadena. But every week we try to meet up, and I would head out there a lot. And this particular day was the day that I was out there, so he was right
Oh,
next to me.
nice. Okay,
So I
cool.
was like, "Oh man, well, good timing." And then I just got to talk to him, and I called back like I'm an expert. It's like, "Yeah, so 14-day contingency," and like just like sounded like I
I
just
love it.
totally knew it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and that's the type of thing where if I was on my own, I would have been like, so you're saying he would have been able to tell that I don't know what I'm doing, and he would have stuck with me because the deal's gotta close. But then who knows after, right? It's like, can I really trust this guy for another loan? I
Right.
don't know. But
100%.
now
Yeah.
he's just all about working with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like the those intangibles, right, that
Mhm.
come with making it in this business, right? And one of
Yeah.
them is like a level of confidence and certainty
Mhm.
because like we just mentioned, like so many paychecks are riding on you getting it right.
Yeah.
So if you really mess it up, you screw a lot of
A
people
lot of
over,
people.
right? And
Yep.
they don't forget. And our industry not that big at the end of the day, right?
Mhm.
Like
No, it's
people, the
not.
word spreads fast, right?
Mhm.
So you want to be able to have that level of certainty
Mhm.
when you have like make those decisions,
Yeah.
and also not have it be like a false certainty. That's
Yeah.
also dangerous too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, this was super helpful. And even through the thing is like you have to find the right people to do it because I think when we first spoke, one of the first questions that I asked, I don't know if you remember this, it was okay, so is there a way that I can get out if it doesn't suit me?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because
You asked like all the questions like a lawyer. It was very good.
yeah. Yeah, and I was thinking, man, I hope he doesn't find this offensive, but
yeah,
like this was before we started talking for real, right? But I just wanted to know that I was protected in case like it didn't work out for me.
yeah,
But then by the end of that talk, I was like, look, I just need it on a piece of paper, but I'm never going to exercise that. I don't think I'm going to need to. Like, this is just going to like totally work out. And yeah, I'm glad like we connected on that level and we have similar ways of looking at the business and just improvement in general, it seems.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's great. I think one of the things that kind of got brought up when I was listening to you guys was the idea of how like this mentorship program is structured. I mean, there's a way that we structured it, right?
mhm.
And obviously we put like, guidelines in place. We have a whole handbook, agreements, all that kind of stuff, right? But ultimately, right, we like the same experience as it is for you as a loan officer with us, right? Which is like you get to choose that approach, right? You really get to do that with each other as a mentor mentee, right?
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you guys can like just share a little bit about what the program has looked like for you guys, in
Mhm.
terms of like what does your sort of like routine look like, like is there like some sort of like things you do on a weekly or a monthly that, kind of help, get to that next level of like understanding? Like
Yeah.
you want to start
Mhm.
us off,
Yeah. I
Justin?
can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So Hugo mentioned we do 1 day
A
a
week,
week
yeah.
in my Westlake office, and usually if we can't do a day in the week in the Westlake office, I come out here to the Pasadena office.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think when we have that 1 day together, whatever it is, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, just together around each other in the office, it's almost like there's no structure, but it's in a beautiful, like it happens in a beautiful way.
Right.
Mhm.
So usually in the Westlake office, and sometimes when we're in Pasadena, we have like a half hour to like 1 hour where we get away from our computers and we sit down and we just talk through some stuff without emails flying around from clients,
Yeah.
Got it.
without phone calls coming in from realtors or clients or like whatever it may be. We get like that I think it's just like 45 minutes to an
Mhm.
hour
Mhm.
where we just connect, get like a weekly update, understand what deals are going on in the pipe.
Yeah.
Usually that happens later in the day, so all like the just heat of the moment,
Yeah.
loan stuff flying around, underwriters, whatever, that's kind of
Yeah.
already gone by the wayside.
Mhm.
So having that connection once a week where he can come into my office or I can come into Pasadena, we sit right next to each other. He hears my conversations on the phone the same way that I heard Steve Kim's conversations on the phone when I started. I heard how he answered the phone. I heard how he answered clients' objections. I heard how he talked to realtors. I heard how
Yeah.
he talked to underwriters. I heard how he talked to Pablo. I
Mhm.
heard how Pablo talked to other loan officers. It's almost invaluable to like be around that and hear
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, so for Hugo to be around me and me to be around Hugo, it's like a two-way street. I can hear how he's doing and he can hear what's going on with me.
Right.
It almost just has this infinite exposure to all the deals I'm working and all the calls that I'm taking.
Right.
It's really not rocket science,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but just having that one day where we're around each other has been, in my opinion, the most valuable thing.
Right.
On top of that, we put together the handbook together. We put together the various like the program. I think there's like 10 or 12 sections of the program that's outlined and different materials to go through,
Yeah.
guidelines, income, credit, products. And we've gone through a lot of that. And recently I kind of got a temperature check with Hugo on the things
some
that
other
he
things, yeah.
wants to go through in more detail.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and it's like there's so much that there's still left to flesh out. Like,
Yeah.
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 yeah, there's so much.
And there always will be. I mean,
Yeah.
there's stuff in there that I'm learning. It's just you can never know it all. And the
Yeah.
second you think you have one section mastered,
It changes.
COVID-19 comes along and all the guidelines change.
Everything
Like,
changes, yeah.
everything
Got
just
it.
turns upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just going through all of that with Hugo, I actually have my own website that I made, and I have an FAQ section in that website for clients to look at. And I actually was like, wait, Hugo, why don't you go read this section
Yeah.
of my website?
That's
It's
good.
very plain English. It talks about contingencies. It talks about appraisals. What happened if you underappraise?
I didn't have to
Okay.
go to Investopedia anymore. I
Oh,
just
didn't
no,
have
you
to
just
do-
did
yeah.
the website. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go to
I just
Essence.
got so sick of my clients reading garbage on the internet that just was not how loans worked, that I just put it on my website
Yeah.
Got it.
and links on my website and product info on my website. So I just thought one day, I was like, wait, Hugo, just go read my website up and
It's a
down.
good website.
It's not the master of all
You're
information,
gonna,
but
you have to
it's,
share that website with us.
yeah,
you
but
know,
it's
that way we
very
can take
it's
a look
very
at it.
applicable to just what you can offer
Yeah.
from Equity Smart Home Loans
Especially at
as a
my
broker.
level where I really just need to be sounding confident about what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't need to know all the details, but if I could tell somebody what a hard money loan is when they ask me, then I sound like the expert, even if I'm
Yeah.
not giving a ton of details. So like those types of things.
Yeah.
Really
And I
help.
think we're coming up on the 90-day checkpoint
Yeah.
on the program.
Yeah.
So I mean, how many deals have you closed? 3, 4?
So I've got 3 loans done. I got another one coming next week. And then I got another in escrow for the end of this coming month.
Mhm.
So
A couple
Awesome.
pre-approvals out there.
Couple
Some people
pre-approvals.
circling on HELOCs. Some
Yeah.
people before pre-approval. The
yeah.
whole pre-pipeline
Uh-huh.
and the
The
pre-pipeline.
pre.
Yeah, I don't even know what the
Yeah.
proper term is, but it's not the yeah. So I think it's taken on a little bit of a different life for Hugo than
Yeah.
it might take on for someone else,
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting because part of the criteria was actually we wanted someone who had closed a loan or two,
Yeah, I saw
ideally.
that.
And
Yeah.
then
I was like, oops.
we walked that back when we met Hugo.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
You know what was
rules are
funny?
meant to be broken.
When so it was Olivia who told me about it. And she told me that Justin would be the mentor. We suggested you. And I was like, cool, awesome. I didn't understand it was gonna be an interview. I thought I was just selected, so I'm like, awesome. And then when
Yeah.
I found out it wasn't on that day, and then I read that the criteria, like some of it said like a couple loans or whatever, like, oh, I didn't do these things.
Yeah.
But they're still talking to me, so
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
I got a shot or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
You
it worked
know,
out.
creating that criteria was like such a moving target
Mhm.
because, like, we look at things that we try and say, like, that means this, right? And
Yeah.
like, so closing a loan means that you have, this sort of work ethic and you haven't had like maybe like the formal training, but you have what it takes. And,
Right.
but ultimately, like,
You're just trying to find the right person and you're creating the criteria that best gets you there, but it's not necessarily the only way to
exactly.
find the person.
It's just like a shorthand way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like the most important thing, I think, but one of the things that you mentioned, right, is that exposure, right, that you have in this sort of program, right? You kind of like just through like presence and working together, you kind of absorb, right, like
Yeah.
what the other person is doing, saying, and kind of have that meld. That requires a certain type of connection and relationship, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, you just have to vibe with the person.
Yeah.
You have to vibe with the person, and you have to know at the end of the day this person is they're gonna do something with this,
Yeah.
right? I think there's nothing more frustrating, as a mentor. You correct me if I'm wrong, but when you like impart some real wisdom and knowledge, and then
And they
just like what the hell happened?
the other
Yeah,
ear.
Yeah, what
what
happened?
do?
You didn't do anything, right?
Yep.
And so, wanting to make sure that, the time is well spent is, I think, one of the things that we have as a concern, right? When we're trying to pair people up.
Mhm.
Because ultimately, if, there isn't that sort of connection and like mutual respect for the
Yeah.
process, then it's just going to fall flat, right?
Yep.
I think one thing I was going to mention about how you were newer and hadn't
Mhm.
closed any deals or didn't have any ongoing escrows
Mhm.
was that you got your hands on a lot of deals very quickly. I
Mhm.
mean, 3 deals in less than 3 months
Mhm.
is to be admired,
Yeah.
and it's only gonna grow from there as your referrals snowball from each other. But the mentorship program probably would have taken on a different life if you didn't have any deals going on. Like,
Mhm.
we'd be talking with you a lot more about marketing and what you're doing with
Yeah.
marketing,
True. Yeah.
because obviously you listened, you had some marketing going on before
Mhm.
in the first month or so that you were here before we talked.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then you listened and stepped outside of your comfort zone. I think a lot of things you said is like, you're not really comfortable walking into a bank and talking with someone.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
really comfortable like sliding into a realtor's DMs,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but you did those things and they
Mhm.
didn't all work. You're not really like thrilled about walking into an
About
open
some of
house.
them, yeah,
Yeah.
but then some of the ones I
But you
liked
did
and
this, you did that, you did this.
tried
You
them.
figured out which ones you liked.
Yeah.
There, regardless of whether it resulted in a deal, still
Mhm.
a learning experience.
Yeah.
Right.
So you tried all those things, but then you had these deals, you have these pre-approvals, you have people calling you all the time, you have people tweeting at you.
Yeah.
So your mentorship program has been a lot more of learning through your deals and you asking me questions about your deals
Yeah.
Right.
than it would be about just like
Getting deals.
necessarily referring to the manual all the time, like Hugo, how's section 4 going?
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
great.
Mhm.
Like, because the best way you're going to learn is through your own deals. You're going to see the process all the way through.
Yeah.
You're working different loan types. Like you've worked
Yeah.
HELOCs, you've worked purchases.
Yeah. I'm about to do a hard money.
You're about to do a hard money
Oh, hey,
loan.
yeah, you're
You're
getting
talking
the
about a
sports book.
10
Yeah, no,
you're talking about a
commercial edge.
1099 loan.
Yep.
I haven't even done a 1099 loan.
Yeah.
You're working with you're being a true broker and you're working with different lenders
Yeah.
because you have to.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the way it looks for Hugo in the mentorship program,
It's
and this is the
different.
beautiful thing about the mentorship
Yeah.
program, is not the same way it's going to look for someone else.
Yeah, it feels like it's gonna be very dynamic no matter what. So like that's why the connection between the two is so important because it's gonna be dynamic.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna be the same mentee that someone else will be.
Hmm.
And they might approach it a different way. And it's just like the whole program's got to flow around it. And I always appreciated that because I remember we were talking the first week when I got the marketing goals.
Yeah.
I did like the most that I could that week. And then the next week I was doing them again. And then by the third week, I remember I was going to meet up with you. I was like, man, he's going to be upset because I didn't do this, or this
Right.
of these marketing goals. But then I thought about it. I was like, well, I have reasons for it because I've been doing these marketing goals that are not in this list.
Going to happy hours, he's meeting realtors with driving an
Yeah,
hour
and
and
it
a
was
half
just
to meet a realtor for
yeah,
coffee.
yeah, exactly.
Psycho maneuver.
And I'm like, there's no way Justin's gonna hear this and be like, don't do that. You got to stick to the list. I'm like, no, he's gonna understand that I'm doing the job,
Yeah.
but just in a way that works for me
Exactly.
and the way that I feel comfortable and where I'm seeing some success. And when I told him about it, yeah, he was all about it. He's like, oh, that's awesome. Like he's like, that sounds
Yeah.
great.
That's
Yeah.
honestly perfect because I was mentioning this earlier. I did a training for our LOs, and one of the things I was talking about is like we're like a lot of us are looking for formulas, right? A formula to like get all the loans in the world and repeat that ad nauseum, and we'll always be good and great, right?
Yeah.
But
Make $1 million a year.
yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
awesome, right? If
Yeah.
only, right? But the reality is like things change all the time, right?
Mhm.
And so rather than like get stuck in a way of like approaching this and like always do it in this formulaic way of like I'm going to make this many calls and I'm not going to do this, but
Mhm.
I will do this and I'll kind of do this, like that's not going to work for you, right? You have to
Yeah.
have like this curiosity of actually like seeing where something will take you.
Yeah.
And
But I was going to say the key thing though is that I tried them
yes,
because I think what you don't want is somebody who just doesn't even see what it's about to say that that's not for me. It's like you got to try what it has worked for other people because your goal is to be the best that you could be. And then if you find out that this path doesn't work for you, then you actually have the knowledge to say, this is better for me.
Exactly.
How could you say one thing is better for you if you haven't even tried the other thing?
Exactly.
You can't really.
I always tell the open house story. So the first marketing activities that I did when I had my license, it was hung with Equity Smart, but I was still working in insurance.
Mhm.
And so this is like January and February of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I would golf and then leave a change of clothes in my locker in Woodland Hills. And then I would go on Zillow and I would find like the 10 closest open houses to each other within a radius. And I would drive from one to another, walked in, had no clue what I was saying, would meet the agents, would follow up with the agents. And then I would do it in Venice too. I lived in Santa Monica at the time.
Yeah.
So I would go park my car in Venice and walk to 10 different open houses. I would trudge from one to another.
Yeah.
I'd dish out my business card and
Yeah.
they'd be like, what are you doing here? Some
Yeah.
of them, but
Yeah.
I'd have good conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I kept a spreadsheet. I think I had like 80 or 90 that I went to in maybe like a 6-week span.
Mhm.
And I only ever did a deal with one of those realtors. And out of all the ones I talked to, he was probably the least likely that I would have thought I would convert because he was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had done like a deal or two, but they were for a cousin or a friend or something. And I think we closed 8 deals together in like a year and a half. And I went
wow.
back and I counted the commissions and I think it was like $100,000 of commissions
Dang.
from
Yeah.
6 weekends of walking open houses to find one realtor.
It's nice. 100K for 6
So-
weeks is great.
You see, that's
Yeah.
like that's such a perfect story because it just shows you, right? Like it's a needle in a haystack sometimes,
Yeah.
but the plan doesn't work if you don't, right? You got to go out and make something happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I do notice, I think when it comes to like there's a lot of loan officers in general that there's like this reticence about like going out and just like having a conversation. And it's like, okay, like how are you going to make something happen if you're not just talking about what you do? And, it's going to be hard to try and convert someone like at a grocery store. But if you go to an open house where people are already looking for a home and people that are involved and, that whole process are there as well, like
Yeah.
No, you have
then
a chance.
you get practice, right?
Mhm.
Like the whole thing is practice. And I love that. because-
Practice and exposure. Being out
Exactly,
there,
exposure. Yeah.
In whatever way you're trying to do it, but just being out there and doing it. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to be out there.
It's a very interesting business. And I can't emphasize the importance of this enough that knowing to someone who knows a loan officer, who's a good loan officer that they know and trust, that's a really valuable piece of information and connection that they have that they're willing to share with other people.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Whether they're a realtor,
They
whether
think they're
they're
lucky to know
someone's
you.
friends
Yeah.
or whether they're someone's family
Yeah.
member,
Yeah.
that is something they're willing to share. What I realized is when I was in insurance before, no one really cared.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're not going to be golfing with
Yeah.
your just really simple example. You're
Yeah.
not going to be golfing with a golf friend on the course. They say, I just bought a new car. And your reply is, I know a guy who is really good at doing car insurance. Like it's just not
Yeah.
a thing that's going to
That's
happen.
hilarious.
A
Yeah.
phrase
But
that's
I
never been
can't-
spoken.
I can't tell you how many times family, friends, coworkers, client of a financial advisor, they mention to someone they're buying a home or they need cash out of their home or whatever it may be that involves a loan. And that person says,
I know.
I
that.
know this guy.
They're
Yeah.
like proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's just so it's that type of business where you almost don't even really need to sell. The selling aspect is you just need to let people know what you do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you just like zap them in the brain. Hugo does loans, Hugo does mortgages. They never get unzapped.
And they
They
remember
just
it.
carry that with them forever. They don't even know they remember it until someone mentions it.
And they keep
then
it there
they
even
tell 'em that-
more if they just like you
Yeah.
as a person too.
Oh yeah.
So then it's like you don't even have to repeat it to them. They just know you do loans.
Yeah.
But I really like this Justin guy.
Yeah.
And then then at that point it's like they're the value adding person to other people because
Yeah.
they know you. Like you're in their pocket.
Yeah,
Like, they
well,
know you. You know?
but you made a good point. The other part is you better make sure they like you.
Yeah.
If they don't like you, then it
You
doesn't
remember
matter
for
if they
the
know
right
you do
reasons,
loans.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
right?
They
It's
they
not gonna be
will
good.
care like zero if they don't like you, but you could do all the loans in the world. They won't care.
Yeah,
They'll be like,
they'll like intercept your phone calls and tell people not to call you if
Yeah,
they don't like
yeah.
you. Yeah.
He screwed me actually. Please don't. Please don't. What might have been if we didn't have the mentorship program, right, for Hugo. But luckily we have this program in place. So we're getting close, I think, to the end of this podcast. But I want to like just kind of refocus this on just your guys' thoughts on like what makes a good mentor and then what makes a good mentee, right?
Mhm.
So maybe you can start us off this time, actually, Justin.
Okay, so what makes a good mentor?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll see if we agree.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Let's see if that. Yeah, we can agree with
Yeah.
that.
So what makes a good mentor? Okay. I think we've touched on some of those things.
Yeah.
It can't be what makes other programs fail and at other brokerages is it's like, hey, sit on this Zoom call so I can lecture 20 people
Mhm.
with the same thing. Here's this manual, read this manual, follow this stuff. There has to be a dynamic, customized aspect of it. This is a really like high leverage business. Every person is different. It's not my mentorship role to tell Hugo how to do his job.
Mhm.
There's certain things I can show him how to do it, but from there he's going to have to kind of mold it into fit his style.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm also not a babysitter, so a
Mhm.
mentor that's trying to micromanage a mentee, once again, that's not my job as a mentor.
Mhm.
So I think being dynamic, but then also my sales style is already very like education based and very patient.
Right.
Because if I can educate my clients, then I can build trust with them.
Right.
Because I show them I know what I'm talking about and that I'm willing to take the time to explain it to them.
Mhm.
And then beyond, what happens is it ends up eliminating more questions that they have because they just trust me with the process.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I carry that education-based sales style that I have, because I'm not a twist your arm, sign here salesman.
Mhm.
I can be if I want to, but there's a lot that would be better at that than I am. Maybe that's why I only did okay selling yellowpages.com 10 years ago. But I'm very education-based. So I think mentorship program education-based style is what's, in my opinion, makes a good mentor.
Got it. What do you think about that?
No, that's spot
Yeah,
on.
spot
Yeah,
on?
no, I
Yeah.
think that all makes for a good mentor, and that's a lot of that is what I captured through our first conversation that I knew this would work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then as far as mentee, in my mind, what's important is how you keep saying intangibles. There's like an intangible about people where they will follow through,
Mhm.
right? It's not about the amount of experience you have. It's about, are you going to follow through on your goals, which is to be a better mortgage loan officer, right?
Right.
I've met people who they're very results based, and they're looking at the money, they're looking at like the units that they're pushing, that's it. And then they never get there and they're like, why is this not happening to me?
Right.
Right? But a person who is performance focused, like execution focused, and follows up, I think that's an ideal mentee because they're going to absorb all the information from a good mentor
Right.
and apply it.
Mhm.
And they're not going to sit on it and just and it's like, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. What do I do? It's like proactive, right? Proactive, follow through. And like I said, no need to be babysitted
Right.
because they're as invested in this as the mentor is invested in the mentee.
Yeah.
100%.
So, and like you need that. You need that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how I look at it. Just
definitely.
but also just like the basic stuff, like be a decent human being and like don't be an a-hole, right? If he gives
Yeah.
you advice,
Yeah.
say, what the hell is that, man? I'm not gonna do that. Like, no, like be a sponge, be willing to learn, ask
Exactly.
questions, and just be a cool person in this kind of relationship. I
Definitely.
think it works out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I love what both of you are saying here. And it really goes back to the central premise, I think, of how we do business at our brokerage, right? Which is it's a relationship based business. And you get much further when you take care of those relationships, right?
Mhm.
And one thing that you said, which I think is so like, it's just so important, right? Is that you have to do something with what you learn, right?
Mhm.
It's not enough just to hear it and then know it on an intellectual level. You have to actually apply it, like you said. And that's the one thing that, we really want to make sure that continues to
Yeah.
be like the core of what makes the program what it is that, it's a place to do something, and so
Also, like apply it with intention, right?
Yeah.
Like not just blindly, because this isn't a formula, right?
Yeah.
This business feels very dynamic, and it all depends on all kinds of factors that you
Yeah.
can't possibly just follow a blueprint. So you're going to try these things, and if it doesn't work, you need to think about why. You need to talk to your mentor about why not,
Yeah.
and see what worked about it that might work somewhere else, right? You got to just apply with intention. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
You got to think about it critically, right? You can't just
Yes.
like go, yeah. And I see that too sometimes where it's just like, it didn't work.
I went to open
I'm
houses.
gonna
Why
I'm
didn't this
gonna
work?
try again and then burn like 30 more opportunities. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
please don't do that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
make it mean something, right?
Mhm.
So but thank you guys for
Thank
just
you.
sharing about our program and just your experiences throughout it. You know, it's honestly been great watching you guys honestly grow in the program, and I'm really excited now that we get to expand the program.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited to see that.
yeah. So we're still gonna keep it a little bit, tight. It's not gonna be like we're not gonna roll it out like wholesale.
Mhm.
The goal is to add on like more mentors and mentees over time.
Mhm.
So one of the things that's going to happen actually is we're going to start opening up just applications for mentors.
You're gonna get a lot.
I hope, a lot.
You're gonna get a lot
uh,
of mentee
a lot of mentees.
applications.
Yeah, yeah. And
Sure.
I've foreseen this as like I mean, we talk about it internally, right? Like there's obviously going to be a lot more demand for like more demand than there are mentors.
Yes.
And I know that for a fact. So it's going to be kind of hard to manage that.
Mhm.
But I think trying to replicate, I think the relationship that you guys had, it's not as simply as like just putting two people in a room and be like, there you go.
Go at it,
Right? Like,
yeah.
there has to be some there has to be a process for that too. So we're going to be very selective with the people that we start to bring into the program. We want to build a really good core, establish a really good culture for the mentorship program here, and then like add on over time, right? Because I mean, I'm a big proponent of sustainability and making sure this program can actually get off its feet and be something that like we're super proud of, because you get the value out of it. You get the value out of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And I know that it's something that we can continue to add to. So I want to say thank you guys for just
Yeah.
being
Thank
being
you.
the guinea pigs, being
Yeah.
being the starters, because
happy to do it.
and you guys have been honestly just doing a great job. So
Yeah.
Hugo's prediction: Hugo's going to be top 5 within 3 years at Equity Smart.
oh damn, there we
yeah,
go.
I'm trying. Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. I'm hoping so.
Hot
I'm
hot
trying.
take.
Hot take. Yeah. No, I mean, I think coming
Might
from
and I might not be in the top 5 myself
no,
by
no.
then.
Oh, no. Yeah,
he
you'll
might.
be
So he
behind the
might
scene.
surpass me. Yeah. No pressure.
None whatsoever. But thank you guys for making it to and just sharing your experience with our program in the podcast. And we'll continue to I think monitor this and see how how things grow over time.
I'm trying to graduate as quickly as possible. Not
Yeah.
because I don't love this, but I wanna do work, man.
Yeah,
This
of course.
has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, eventually, I'm pretty sure you'll be on the other side of the chair, and
Maybe
you'll
I
have your-
kind of suck as a mentor. I don't know.
All right. Well, then don't apply.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
Yeah.
y'all can decide, but I don't know.
All right.
I could show you the review I got from a manager at a job
Uh-huh.
6-7 years back, and you'd laugh.
Yeah. Wait, what did they say?
I'll show it to you sometime.
okay.
Yeah. Not fit for air, maybe. But
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will, like I said, follow up again once we kind of have like another 3 to 6 months and can
Mhm.
kind of see where things are at. And I want to thank everyone that listened to our podcast today. If you are interested in the mentorship program, we will have a link on my ESHL where you'll be able to apply and review that criteria. We have a program handbook, a brochure, the agreement itself, all transparent on there, as well as the application for all mentors. So give it a look if you are interested. We're very excited to see who wants to be a mentor and welcome you into this program. But until next time, I am Serafin, Director of Operations for Equity Smart Home Loans, and I'll see you next time.